Hello there, Dave here. We are talking about the laws God has given mankind and the laws that God has given to his people, Israel. We are in Leviticus, which is a law book. It is words from God directly to Moses. Some of these laws directly to the children of Israel wandering in the desert, living for many, many, many years in a land that didn't know about dietary regulations, about health, about keeping things clean. There was a lot of stuff that Moses would have learned about living in Egypt that Moses did not have anything to do with at this point, working with the children of Israel. So it's really kind of interesting when you think about all the things that Moses could have brought to the table. None of that is in any of this, any of the Mosaic law. It's all just directly from God. Some of it for the children of Israel, some of it for mankind as a whole, the morality of the nations and how people are supposed to be living and how we are supposed to be with each other and humanity. Chapter 11, clean and unclean animals. You go there, you talk about all the different kinds of animals, the birds, the livestock, the insects. And I love it because it's taxonomy. It's the organization of different animals and the birds and the fish and the reptiles and amphibians and all the kinds of things that we know of now. We talk about in modern science. It's all there. God is separating them in his own way. The birds, the fish, the insects, all the things that he says. Some clean, some unclean. For dietary regulations, for keeping you clean. Also because some of the things that other nations around them were worshiping or were using for idols and all that kind of thing, God wanted his people to be separate from the way the world is doing things. Just like he tells us Christians to be separate from the way the world does things. In the New Testament, though, he does a lot of things where he says, this is okay now. He goes into, to Peter and says, you can eat things if I tell you can eat them. Don't eat it if I tell you not to eat it. It is about the Holy Spirit. It's about what God says in the New Testament. Jesus goes in there and he says, the law, as it is given, is good. He is the fulfillment of all the law. We don't live under the law because of what he did for us on the cross. That is true. But we live by him, through him, trying to follow all of his commands, all the moral regulations, all the things that we know are in our moral code, whether we believe it or not. We know there are moral absolutes. There are truths to things that we can and cannot do, should and should not do, the things that God has told us. And that comes up here after chapter 11, of course. Obviously, the people of Israel and we now have refrigeration and different ways of taking care of food better than they did back then. Chapter 12 is all about cleaning after childbirth. It definitely takes care of the babies, the little ones, the poor, females, purification rites, all the things that we should do in order to keep the babies as healthy as possible, because childbirth is very difficult now. It's definitely difficult then. Chapter 13, diagnosis of leprosy, talking about all the kinds of leprosy, sores, boils, burns. There's a lot there. Rituals of cleansing the lepers. Got a whole lot in chapter 14 to go to. You could study through all of that. Chapter 15, laws concerning bodily discharges, and that's just like a lot of things men and women deal with. Chapter 16 is a big one. That is a day of atonement. The one day of the year is the most important day. That day when, and the only day when, the high priest can go in the most holy place and do the atonement for the nation as a whole. All the other sacrifices were the individual sins of individuals that would come to God and say, I did this and this, and I need to sacrifice for it. All of this, our day of atonement as Christians, is the day that Jesus died on the cross. We are saved once and for all because of what he did on the cross. None of the other stuff that we can do is going to earn or buy or get any closer to God. There's no brownie points. There's none of that. There's good works, yes. There's rewards in heaven, sure. But none of that is salvation. None of that is to make you better than anybody else. Not at all. No. We do things because we are now children of God. We do things as a result of being saved. Transformation, restoration, reformation, all the things that God does. He gives us a new heart, and conforms our heart, our mind, brainwashes us. Brainwashing. We need a good brainwashing because our minds full of sin is not a good place. But we will continue in the next video because I have prattled on quite long. Thank you for staying with me. God bless.